A quick disclaimer before the video begins. This video was actually filmed for a completely different project last year. Unfortunately, the project isn't active anymore, and I didn't want such an informative session with such an amazing individual to go to waste, so I decided to upload it to my YouTube channel. Rashmi is a physics undergrad, she's a science communicator, and she's currently doing amazing things at an organization called as Spaceonova. She was super nice to take some time out and do this with me. All of her social media links, including her Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, will be linked in the description, so if you're interested in space or science communication, please do check her out. I hope all of us can take some inspiration from Rashmi and her story. So here's the interview. Today we have with us a very special guest. Rashmi is here with us today. So I'll just quickly ask Rashmi, could you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Rashmi, and I'm a physics graduate, as well as I'm a science communicator, astronomer, and so many more things. Currently, I am the head of communications and outreach at Spaceonova, and that is both my academic and as well as the professional background. But I'm here. I guess I'm here for the most of the astronomy things or astrophysics things.
Okay.
Yes, okay. Let's see how.
Wow, that's great. Okay, so we'll jump right in the questions. So we have a couple of questions from our team, and then we also have some questions that our audience really want to ask you. So the first question we have here is, how did you get interested in space?
So like most of the kids, they get interested into the space at a very young age. So yeah, there are some people who get interested maybe in college or after that, but I am with the majority of people who got interested at a very young age. So I used to have these fascinations with the word space and the universe, how everything is so expands, and I could not place myself under it. So just when I was, starting out in 8th class or 9th standard or 10th standard, I used to watch these series like on Discovery and all this. So I become interested into it after I came to know like people really study it. So there are people who study space, and there are people who study all the other things, the stars. So there are astronomers, there are people who study physics, and not just the physics, but the how the universe has evolved. So there are cosmologists, and that is how I came to know all the different fields, and I realized that if there are so many fields, why just become anything else? I should go in this specific direction of space, because this is what has fascinated me since a very young age.
Wow, that's great. So, okay, the next question we have here is, what career path are you looking in for the future?
So yeah, because of my bachelor's, I have came across very different range of career paths. So there are many fields already in space sciences, and what I was mostly interested into, this is has to do with the research path. So as I came to know about this field, that this is the cosmology field in which we study the evolution of universe and how it had started and how the first galaxies formed, how was the role of black holes in them. So there was a point of time when I realized that yeah, this is something that I want to do research in, but at the same time, the maths that was being involved was something that I wasn't really, what should I say, like I wasn't enjoying the maths that was involved. So this is not something, from observations we can do. You have to become a theoretical physicist or a cosmologist to go in that specific direction. And I realized that even though I want to go in that direction, maybe this is not the perfect time. And that is when I realized that I currently, like what fascinates me most is the observation in astrophysics. So I thought I will start the observations, and I will see if I really like them, and if I want, if I want to take it to the next step and study the maths that is involved, and maybe pursue a degree in that. So for my masters, I'm planning to take a degree, most probably in cosmology.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, that's incredible how you've thought it through so thoroughly. So, okay, the next
Yeah.
question we have here is how did you come across science communication and why did you choose to pursue it?
So yeah, as I was telling you that there was a point in my life, like when I was doing my bachelor's, and that's when I realized that I want to go in this particular field. Like after my bachelor's, I want to do masters in cosmology. But the path I will have to, give a lot of entrance exams. Either it is in India or outside, and maybe I wasn't, ready for it at that point of time. So I came across a psychologist when because I was interested into the observations part. So I attended astro camps, and I used to go to the Nehru Planetarium in Delhi. So when I was with all these people who were with telescopes and they were doing all the outreach, either they were fascinated with the university or the government in planetariums, I came to know that uh, like there's a way for me, like if I want to pursue the observations and if I want to go in this specific field, which is the observational astronomy, then I can pursue that, and not just observational astronomy, like to communicate what I love about the space or the universe. Then there is another field for that, and that is the science communication or the outreach part, and that has fascinated me like very most since last 2 years. And I have focused mostly on the science communication part and how to communicate science. And I realized that like, even I can pursue it, like even I can pursue it like where I am right now. I do not have to get some research degree or some other qualifications. It's just what I already know, and I have to communicate it with the people. And I thought like maybe I want to do science communication for some quite a while, and um I get like if I get back interested into the going back to the college and doing masters, getting back to all maths and maybe all the other things that has like the mathematical physics or the computational astronomy, all those things. So this is a bit different than that, and I'm like currently pursuing science communications, and I like the that is known as either taking videos or interview like this, or making videos, writing blogs, or you start a podcast, or maybe you start doing art. So whatever you already love, you have to communicate it with the science, and I've found that that is something that I can do really well, and I connected with that. So currently everything that I do has basically narrowed down to the science communication part. Yeah, so that is how like I became interested into it.
That's amazing. I mean, like, I always like agree that for science communication, all that matters is your enthusiasm. That is it. Like, you do not need to have any sort of degree to get into it. Okay, so I
Yes, yes.
think,
So it also gives me
yeah.
yes, I would say it also gives me like some confidence. So there are things like imposter syndrome, and when you think like maybe you can do it or maybe you cannot do it, but when you finally start communicating it to the people, you actually realize that yeah, you can really do it, and you love doing it. So it makes the vision and the path even more clearer than it was already. So I like just love doing science communication.
That's amazing. Okay, so the next question is what fascinates you the most about the universe?
So what fascinates me most as was just how I got interested into is the cosmology part. So we do not have a very specific reason how the universe might have began. We just know okay, there's this Big Bang, and even Big Bang there are so many theories and evidence that Big Bang really happened, but we aren't really sure like what triggered it and how the Big Bang happened. And when I started reading about like how the Big Bang might have happened, how the universe had an beginning, and it has an age, and there is some point of time that everything might change a lot of, and there are so many different ways the universe can end. So these are the big questions that nobody knows the answers to. And even though we do not know the answers to these big questions, like how the universe came and how if there are multiple universes or if there are aliens out there in some other universes. So these big questions, they actually give, in a way, they give more life and meaning, and they make us more humble. So I think studying about the universe, about these, thinking about these big questions, we do not really know the answers to them, and there are cosmologists working them, like daily trying to find the answers, and it will take so many years. The dedication that cosmologists show, the scientists show it, that fascinates me most about the universe in a very general way. Like we are trying so hard to figure it out, and like no matter what the answer is, like it will be not something that we are going to face. No matter how the universe had started or how it will end, that is just billions and billions of years. We have no role in that. But still, to be able to find those answers is what fascinates me most about the universe and in general the field of alien cosmology.
That's great. Okay. So now those were all of the questions from our team. Now we have some of the questions that our audience members have asked you. So the first question is, how hard is a BSc in physics?
Okay, so when I got into college, and like my college was in the south campus of the Delhi University. So the name of my college is Atma Ramasnathan Dharma College. That's a big name. And when I first got into the college, I was like, I will be going to study physics, and maybe there will be astrophysics. Maybe in the fifth semester, sixth semester, anywhere else, or there will be people or the students who will be interested in physics, and we will be solving the different things. So I actually had so many like things in my head that I had already assumed about. When I get into the physics, BSc physics, I will be studying so many things, doing so many experiments. But that hasn't been like very like, exact reality of what I had earlier thought because of our education system. And that is, when I had these like opinions in my mind, like whether I should pursue it or should I, spend 1 or 2 years trying to give entrance exams if I want to study in India and outside India. So there is some point of time, most probably in your second year, when you are studying BSc Physics, that you will be thinking which way should I go? Should I pursue the physics like the professor teaches? Should I pursue it and focus on my masters, and should I focus on the entrance exam, or should I really focus on the experiments that are going on and trying to understand, reading through both of the books and all these different books that we have and the material that is available on the internet. And if you try to like match them, they do not really, they do not really tally together. So there's a bit of difference in them. And students, I think students who do not know about this, if they do not have an elder sibling into college first. So like I would give advice to students who are just in 11th standard or 12th standard, and they think like, yeah, BSc physics is so cool. We will be learning so many new things. So they should talk to the students who have already studied there, and they should ask like, what are the different subjects that are being taught there, how are the professors, and they should also have a clear idea what they actually want to do after a BSc degree. Maybe they want to pursue an MSc, or maybe they want to go in something different, because there were so many students who pursued physics in my class, and then they are like nowhere related to the field of even science. They have left academia, and now they are going to do other fields. So that is like that really happens because students do not know how it is and how hard it might get when you are, because in the first year we just study whatever we had learned in the 12th standard, and most of us studied really hard in the 12th standard. And as soon as the first year goes and you're in college and you want to do all these things, and then there's physics, and there are all like 6, 7 subjects of physics, which are like core, the core mathematical physics and other things, and that might take a toll on you. So it was really tough for me in the second year, and like in the third year, this pandemic happened, and my last semester was really different than I had already imagined. And students might be facing many different challenges that are that have just enrolled into this course. But I would advise them to, before just get into the field of physics or BSc physics in India, they should talk to students either in their college that want to go, or just students who are maybe in their masters, because the students want to do masters in BSc. They should talk to the students who are already doing it, because talking to them maybe gave a mental clarity to them that I did not have at my time. So maybe I would have chosen a different course or a different college, and things might have been different if I had that kind of guidance. So I didn't have it at my time. So I hope students they do not make any decision in a very hurry. So there's a plenty of time to make the decision.
It's some great advice, Rashmi. Thank you so much for that. And the next question, I think it's a pretty technical question where somebody's asking, where do neutrinos get their mass?
So yes, about neutrinos, there have been some research done on how they are getting their mass, because earlier it was thought that these neutrinos, because they are moving at the speed of light, they do not have any mass, and maybe they are like photons, massless particles. But then there was the experiments that were carried later on, when they were detected, when a supernova happened and all the neutrinos are coming, and the way they were detected, we came to know that neutrinos do have mass, but they have very, very little mass. So how to exactly find out what is their mass? So we currently do not know what is their mass. We just have an estimate, like they are the lightest particles in the standard model, so even very lighter than the electrons. And electrons are easier to detect because they have an electric charge, and their mass, even though it is less, we are still able to detect it. But in the case of neutrinos, they are so hard to detect because they have very less mass. So some idea is like they have around a million times less mass, like they are a million times less massive than the electrons. So that is very, very light. And also they do not have any charge. So they become very hard to first detect. And because we haven't detected them in so many experiments, we do not have an estimate for what their mass might be. So there are like three different types of neutrinos, but we do not know the exact mass of any of them, and that is why we do not even know how they are gaining that mass from. And the characteristics, if students know, if they try to study about neutrino, they will find out that they do not behave in a way that other particles behave in the standard model. So all the other particles, we had this very famous news, that is the God particle or the Higgs boson, and it gives mass to all the other particles. But in the case of neutrino, it is the way the neutrino behaves, it just shows one kind of flavor, and that is why the scientists that are working on the neutrino, they say that it has not gained mass from the Higgs boson, so it doesn't interact with Higgs boson. It interacts with the regular matter very, very less. So there might be something that is giving mass to the neutrino, but we haven't really detected it. So it is also hypothesized like they might be something like the dark matter. So we cannot detect the dark matter. But we know it is there, and it doesn't really interact with the normal matter, and we cannot detect it, but we know it's there. So in the case of neutrinos, all the experiments that scientists are currently doing with the technology that we have, they are not able to detect it, and the different things that there are already there produce neutrinos and to produce plenty particles in play that maybe after both neutrino and the engine is contaminated and that is produced by them, maybe we can measure that energy, and maybe we can go back down, and using the maths, maybe we can find out what the actual mass must have been. But still, those kind of processes have been even rarer to actually produce. So neutrino is something that we do not have any solid estimate how it is, what is the exact mass of it, or how it even gains mass. So both of these things are as clueless as talking about dark energy or dark matter and all these things, because till we make something new like the Large Hadron Collider, there is very little evidence or very little experiment that we can do to actually find out how the different values and that are being associated to something as invisible or indetectable as a neutrino.
Wow, I mean,
That is a really good question, though. Like if somebody is trying to study about neutrinos, they can spend like so many days over it, and still like they will just know so many research has been done, and there are so many number of detectors that are being constructed, but they're still very hard then, because they do not, they do not behave as any of the other particles that are there in the standard particle particles. So they are not behaving as any other elementary particles, and they are so different. So learning about them is like learning a completely alien kind of element that we have. And I'm really glad like somebody asked that question.
Oh, so great question to the person who asked it, and thank you so much for that answer. Now we have the final question for this interview, which is again another interesting question. Someone's asking, how do you become a science communicator?
So like becoming a science communicator is pretty easy than, let's say, detecting neutrinos or trying to study quantum mechanics or getting a degree in physics. These things are way too hard. But science communicators are students who are as young as maybe in the sixth standard or seventh standard. They have just started studying the science, and they are so fascinated by it that they want to share it with the world. So if a student, let's say they are making a project, and if they want to talk about this project, and they make a YouTube video for it, and they just put it on the YouTube, and maybe they share it with their friends, and they are going to a place to show their model science communication, even though the small kid, they do not know that they are actually doing science communication. They are just so excited about the experiment that they have created, and they want to show it to the world. But that is a kind of science communication from the children's side. So as you grow up, there are so many different kinds of different branches of science. So some people like to call it specifically the subject they are trying to communicate. So there are terms like either space communicator or space sciences communicator, and then there are terms like just science communicator. So science communicator is a broad term. It simply means that you are trying to share the science, but in a way that is jargon free. So you're not trying to communicate the science, the topic that you're trying to communicate. It has like the words that you're using should not have the things that the people do not know. So even a student or even anyone in the general public, both kind of audience should be able to understand it. And if you are able to do that, then we can say that you are trying to become, you are on a path to become a successful science communicator. And then there are so many different mediums as well when it comes to science communication. So as I talked earlier, some people like to make comics, and there are, the comics are mostly famous for things like, there are action heroes, and they have all these different things. They have superpowers. But at the same time, if you have a comic and you're trying to communicate, if you're trying to communicate the science behind behind the COVID, so behind this specific virus, and if you have a code dedicated to how the pandemic had started and how deadly the coronavirus is, or how the masks are useful to us, so it will even come in a way of communicating science. So you might say, but I just like making comics, I just like making art or making something comedy. So even though, so you can combine different kinds of interests that you have. So one of them could be science, the other one can be making a video or writing a poem, writing a blog,